Oh, look at that. Live stream has been started. Great. Well, welcome everybody. I'm going to call this meeting to order. If you haven't been at a Palace meeting for the last little bit, we do waive titles just to have a little bit more friendly of a conversation. So this meeting is starting on September 11th, 2025. And can I have an adoption of the minutes? Councillor Davison and Warden Townend. All in favor? That carries. And approval of the agenda. Councillor Fritsch.
I'll second.
And Mayor Ferguson, thank you. All in favor? That carries. Disclosure of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof. See none. Let's go straight into matters for consideration. We're going to start with number 1, 2024 Palace Housing Corp audited financial statement. Mark Day, you're up to the plate. How are you?
Good morning, committee members. Before you is the 2024 audited financial statements. KPMG has completed their audit. So these statements are presented to you for your approval this morning. I do want to highlight a couple of items on the statements. Overall, the Housing Corporation is in a good financial position. As you recall from 2023, along with your municipalities too, the biggest change in financial statements was asset retirement obligation. So last year we had a big adjustment for that. It was 1.3 million. This year there's a further increase of about 124,000, and you can see that in note 10 or page 29 of the agenda. So there's that results in a loss just on the financial statements of $94,470. Okay, and but it should be noted that the liability has mostly been recognized and amortized, and the loss that's in there is reflected in the accumulated surplus, and it will not have to be levied on the 2026 taxes, just for committee's reference. Also, if you notice on the statement of financial position on page 18 of your agenda, the net financial assets is at 1.4 million. It's a positive amount, so that's a good sign. And what that shows to the committee members is that our assets are in a position to meet our liabilities. So we're in a positive state, and that's always a good sign to show for that as well. A couple other notes. The reserve balance at the end of 2024 is at a little over 4.3 million, which leads well for moving forward. And also the long-term debt is now at 340,000. That mortgage is on the Meadow Lane property. It was renewed in August 2024 at 6.058%, and that was done through the province and their guidelines. Should be noted that is be finally paid off in October 2026, so the Housing Corp will have no more debt. So in the future, if we do need to build, there's capacity there to do that. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions that the committee may have, and obviously looking for your approval of the financial statements.
No, not much.
Okay, thank you so much, Mark. You answered a few of my questions right off the bat, so that's great. Anybody else have any questions? I'm seeing none, so I'm just going to get into a couple of my extra ones. Changes in prepaid expenses doubled from 2023 to 2024. This is on page 4 of the report.
Yeah.
Just kind of curious what happened there.
So really that's just the timing of when the expenses do get paid and get recorded. So anything that's prepaid into the future year is recorded as a prepaid expense. So they'll be expensed then in 2025. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And my last question, so I'm just scrolling. The annual surplus was at 214,000. Is that why such a large surplus?
The accumulated surplus? Sorry, what are you referring to?
On page 10.
Okay.
So through budget information at the very bottom, annual surplus after revenue and expenses.
So, yeah, that is the actual budget amount when it's allocated and adjusted out for capital assets and stuff. So it's really just a timing thing. And actually it shows that should say deficit because it's 214.
Right,
It's
right,
a
right.
minus it.
This
So
is in
a
brackets.
typo under, so we'll get that corrected. Okay.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Sorry, just reading. Okay, then I'm all good. Counselor Nyman, I see you're with us. Thanks for joining. Do you have any questions before on this, as I've already asked? Nope, all good. Okay, then can I have a mover and seconder to accept this? Sorry, I'm going to the agenda now. Warden and Mayor, I see your hands are up. Okay. There is recommendation, so I'll read it out. That the September 4th, 2025 staff report, read 2024 audited financial statements, Prince Edward Lennox and Addington Housing Corporation, from Mark Day, Director of Financial Services, be noted and received, and further that the financial statements of the Prince Edward Lennox and Addington Housing Corporation for the year end December 31st, 2024 be approved. All in favor? That carries. Maybe I'm going to have other people read out these motions just to stop it only being my voice on this feed. So we're going, on that note, we're going to move on to 2. Homeless working group. We have a director.
Thank you. Good morning, committee. So at the last Pellis committee, staff were directed to set up a homelessness meeting with the lower tier elected officials, as well as staff that are directly or indirectly affected or impacted by homelessness. So that meeting has been set up. As you can see in the report, it's set up for October 1st. It will run from 9 to 3, possibly 3:30, because it's a big topic. And it will be located at the Selby Hall. So right now there'll be about 50 participants, with a maximum of 8 attending from each municipality plus Pellis staff. So we've engaged a facilitator, Suzanne Gibson, who will be facilitating the day, keeping us on track, and moving forward from there. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that committee may have about that meeting.
Any questions and hands? Counselor Fritsch.
Thank you, Sam. Lynn, one question I had is, and I'm probably going to get to this anyway, is the participants prior to going to the meeting, will they be provided with sort of some context around the meeting and what they should do to be prepared for it and think about it? Because there's going to be well, hopefully most people are going to be contributing something, whether it's information or opinions or how they feel, certain issues are in their community. But yeah, as far as what they should think about and come with so they can do some prep work.
Thanks for the question. We are still working on the agenda for today, and we have another meeting scheduled for tomorrow. There will be more information coming out, and hopefully there will be some questions included with that for people to think about prior to the meeting, because as we know, it's hard to think of things on the spot sometimes. So this will give people, an opportunity to kind of think, okay, what do they run into and see in their daily lives of work, and how is it impacting, and make some notes to bring that information to the meeting. So we're still working on that, but we're hoping that we're going to have something to come out to the attendees prior to that meeting.
Great. Thanks, Lynn.
Warden.
Thank you, through you, Chair, to Ms. Chenier. Ms. Chenier, just for the benefit of those watching or who may watch, October 1st is one step in this process. It's not like a one and done kind of affair. There'll be lots of further work to do in consultation post that event. Am I correct?
Yes, thank you very much for that question. You'll see later on in this agenda that We've now received communications from the ministry about an updated 10-year housing and homelessness plan. So this is really good timing because we'll be able to get the feedback from municipal and elected officials. But through this whole homelessness and housing and homelessness plan, sorry, we will be doing community consultation with the general public, people with lived experience, probably the elected officials and municipal staff again at some point in time, and to move that plan forward and really bring in all the information, who's impacted, how are they impacted, and hopefully some creative ideas as to how to address some of those things. So there will be lots of community consultation, and that report will be due by the end of May of 2026. So we've got some time that there'll be lots of engagement.
Thank you.
Councillor Nyman?
Thank you. Just a quick follow-up on that. So you say community engagement. So what does that consist of? And are you having it in both areas?
Through the chair, thanks for that. It's a great question. We will be having it in both Lennox and Addington and Prince Edward County. So there'll be consultations for the entire service area. So we are the delivery agent for both Prince Edward County and Lennox and Addington County, and we want to make sure that we're gathering the information from both municipalities, because homelessness and housing is different in each of the municipalities. So we need to factor those nuances into that housing and homelessness plan as well. So yes, there'll be consultation in both areas for sure.
Yeah. And what is it consisting of? Like, are you just having public meetings, or like I'm trying to figure out how you're gonna get that input.
So it may be addressed later in the other report. I would imagine probably because Zoom is so accessible and Teams and all those kinds of things, people who generally wouldn't be able to travel distances, virtual meetings are probably a good opportunity, but I do expect that there will be in-person meetings as well. So it'll be a combination of both.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I would just like to say we'll have more, like the director was pointing out, a little bit more fulsome of a conversation when this section comes up, where we can really nail down those ideas. I would just like to say we have had, or I guess, I know I've talked to the director about this, but I would like to make it more a public question. We have had some outside agencies reach out wanting to join. The thought originally by the chair, myself, and vice chair and director was that we were just going to try and keep it to a manageable number as it is. I don't think that has really changed. Chair, director, would you agree to that?
Yes, I would agree. So this first meeting is really for municipal staff and elected officials, and there'll be future engagements for the community, the public, community agencies, media, all those kinds of things, as we move through that housing and homelessness plan.
Yeah, and I think like Warden Town had said, we can always have another meeting if this was incredibly successful, and we think that listening to other voices and hearing from other social groups could really add to the conversation and make it into maybe another full day event. I would love to see that extension happen. And I think that was kind of what you were alluding to, Warden, that this conversation isn't over at this moment. It's trying to manage it the best we can so we don't get overwhelmed. Okay, I see nods through the screen in case people are audio listening. So I'm going to call last call for questions. Okay, can I have a mover and a seconder to move this? Councillor Fritsch and Warden Townend. All in favor? That carries. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, number 3, homelessness prevention program infographic. Lynn, you're still up.
Thanks very much. So Pellis has developed an infographic, and if it's okay with committee, I will have Beth put it up on the screen. It is part of the agenda, so you've probably already seen it, and the public also has access to it through the agenda. But it's a big infographic on housing and homelessness within both Lennox and Addington and Prince Edward County. It highlights the role that Pellis plays in the housing continuum. And really we're involved in most aspects of the housing continuum. We're involved with homelessness, the warming centers, transitional housing, community housing, as well as affordable housing. It also talks about programs that are funded by the Homelessness Prevention Program, which includes rent and utility assistance to help people maintain their housing or secure housing, emergency shelter supports, transitional housing initiatives, case management and housing support services that are available, as well as community support services that we fund. And we will have printed and digital copies available for all of the municipalities within the service area. And it'll be available on the website, and we'll do some social media with the infographic as well, just to get that information out there so that the public has the information. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Great, thank you so much for that. Any questions from committee? I have, oh, Mayor Ferguson.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Just a quick question about the printed and digital copies. What's the expectation that either municipalities or the public use of the infographic? How do you anticipate it being used?
Great question. I think it's a resource. So for staffing with supporting agencies, municipalities, all of those kinds of things, it's information for them. So it might be something that they read once and maybe refer back to, if they encounter a situation, it's like, oh, I kind of read something about that, and dig that out again. So it's really just an information tool.
Just quick follow-up, if I may. Yeah, I'm just wondering if I suppose it's up to the municipalities to whittle this down into something that's more, like, I don't want to, I'll use the word manageable, but something that is a little bit more direct about the situation we're facing, and concerning homelessness in our municipalities. So there's an understanding. It's a very comprehensive piece. It's terrific. It provides everything in one place. I'm just wondering if in some instances it may offer a little bit too much.
I agree, it has a lot of information in it for sure. If it's a committee's will, though, we can look at splitting things out, creating one specific to homelessness. We are also working on, I know Prince Edward County already has one available in terms of supporting agencies that are available that can be handed out. So phone numbers are handy, all those kinds of things. We're working on one as well for Lennox and Addington County. So those will be resources that could go along with this that might be a little bit more streamlined and not have some of the higher level budgetary information that some people may not be interested in. So we can look at those kinds of options as well, if that's committee's will.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably a pretty good idea, and I'd be willing to move that if there's support from other members in committee.
Is anyone looking to second this? Oh, Councillor Davison?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay, so it would be a motion to extract some of the individual components of the infographic, make it a little simpler and easier to digest for particularly members of the public and municipal or service organizations.
Specific to each municipality, correct, or not?
I
You mentioned it. I'm just double checking.
No, well, it'd be great if it could be done that way, but it would be just a great start to do it for the whole service area.
Great. Well, then I'm gonna call a vote on that amendment. All in favor? That carries. Any more questions? I have one quick one. I was just wondering if there will be an accessible viewing option of this infographic. I mean, I have no problem zooming in on my phone or my computer to look at it. I know there are individuals that won't be able to have the same accessibility to documents in small print. So I'm just curious if there will be an accessible option provided if need be.
Thanks for the question. We hadn't actually got that far, so the infographic was just finalized recently, but we can definitely look at that, and that might be a better option for those smaller components because then there'd be less information. We'd be able to make the font and print bigger and those kinds of things. So we'll definitely consider that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And can I have a mover and seconder for the recommendation as or that for the to be noted and received on a whole with including the amendment, Councillor Fritsch and Warden Townend. All in favor? That carries. Okay. Moving on to number 4. We're working down this list. Housing and homelessness plan. Thank you, Lynn, for all your help on those last few. Scott, you're in the hot seat now. Take it away.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, so we have a housing and homelessness plan that we developed in 2014, and we're expecting we'd have to update that last year. That didn't happen, and we usually get direction from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing about that. And we received it, I think it was August 14th or 15th, and we have to have an updated plan by the end of May 2026. So we will be working through this. We'll be consulting with stakeholders with our member municipalities. I know later on there's a recommendation about a housing needs study. If we move forward with that, then we would probably dovetail on some of the questions so that we aren't requiring groups to meet with us a couple times. And anyway, so we've got many months to plan and to complete this. And given that the direction arrived in mid-August, I have discussed it with the housing team at Pellis, but we haven't had a formal meeting about it to sort of start charting out a plan forward. And part of it has to do with what happens with the housing needs study and stuff like that. So if anybody wants to read the old 2014 report, like, wow, have our priorities, some have stayed the same. Like we still want to maintain those 615 community housing units, but homelessness, it's a good look into the past, looking at what we thought we'd do about homelessness. And in 2014, there might have been, 3 or 4 visibly homeless people in the whole Pellis area. And that's changed so much. And in most housing and homelessness plans and the original ones, homelessness got this thin little chapter. It may get its own chapter with sub-series now, just the homelessness issue, let alone, new affordable housing and things like that. So each of you will be getting information from us when we plan to meet with staff from each municipality. And one of the things we've talked about that we're already working on was, I'm just going to skip back to the last discussion, are those resources that Mayor Ferguson was talking about, and thinking like, wouldn't it be great if municipal staff had like a 1 or 2 pager that they could look at? Somebody's at the library, they can look down. This person says they haven't eaten for 3 days. Where can we get food locally? And things like that. So that will happen as a result of this housing and homelessness plan as well. And sorry, I should add, Madam Chair, I will be informing committee about our plans and progress through the next few months about where we are with this.
That's great. And I believe Councillor Nyman did ask about specific in-person chances to meet with you staff to hear that it's not just municipal staff, even though that's fantastic to hear. That was one of my questions, but also our service groups, correct, Councillor Nyman? As I'm speaking for you, I'm getting a nod.
Oh, for sure. We're going to meet with our agency partners for sure. We'll be meeting with people with lived experience, not just people who are unhoused, but one of the groups I find we get a lot of information from are people who have been unhoused who are no longer unhoused, and sort of go back and have them walk through what would have helped them or what did help them and stuff like that. So, yeah, I look forward to planning those and coming up with the best ways to meet with municipal staff and elected officials so that everybody can have input.
Yeah, I agree to that. There's no point in just going to the intellectual individuals and asking how they would solve a problem for somebody who's actually lived through it and not taking their advice, and because what I might think is a proper solution might not be what the need is for the individual. So that's great to hear, Scott. I'll open the floor to questions. Councillor Fritz.
Yes, thanks, Sam. I guess it's sort of been asked maybe already, but during this information gathering, Scott, I know you're probably going to be consulting with lower tiers, certainly from the staff and the elected officials. But what are your thoughts on the actual community? I'm not thinking necessarily the people who've lived it, but the people who see it. So the general community. When I say see it, I mean I know lots of people around here who are essentially looking after people that are unhoused, whether it's couch surfing or they're sleeping in some trailer on their property or whatever, right? But the general community, I mean, maybe not everyone has an interest in this, but there will be some out there that maybe can offer some good insight from their perspective as, I'm going to say it, the average person in any one of our communities.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Fritz, and through you, Chairwoman, to Councillor Fritz and the rest of the committee. Definitely there's groups that I'm interested in hearing from. So I don't want to just pinpoint it to these, but two examples that jump out in my mind are kind of like downtown businesses in Napanee and downtown businesses in Picton. When I think of visibly homeless, it's Napanee and Picton where there are visibly homeless. But I'd be interested in talking to people in Addington Highlands about the impacts on them. And homelessness looks different there. Like you said, it's probably like a rundown trailer on their uncle's property or hunting camps and things like that. I am interested in getting information from everybody about this. I've talked to a couple of business people in Napanee, all of whom I should state have come to me not, we need to get rid of this problem. It's more, what could their role be? So they have people coming into their places of business who sometimes create problems. Sometimes just, there's at a local grocery store where some people maybe under the influence of drugs or a brain injury kind of stare at the produce and are fascinated when the hydration comes on. And so, and they're kind of like, what can I do? What's my role? And how can I do something that's positive and help these people? So I definitely would like to hear from them as well as our service members. And I'm going to sort of jump ahead to the housing needs study report. But with the housing needs study, the consultant will be meeting with staff and elected officials from all of our member municipalities. So how do we add questions in from that process that will help feed our homelessness, housing and homelessness plan update? And that not just includes dealing with people who are unhoused, but there's almost kind of like the other end of this with the creative creation of new housing supply, and how do we trigger that or help foster that, or is there a role for us in that?
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Great question. I think Councillor Nyman.
Yeah, thank you. So just I just want to make sure I understand, I guess. So, when we start working on the plan, we're gonna get all this, uh, reaching out to people and whatnot. So the housing corporation that we have a lot of data and stuff. So how is that, is that gonna be a part of the whole process from start to finish? Like, I guess, who's gonna sit there and try and put the plan together, I guess? You know what I mean?
Sure. Yes, it'll be staff driven. Staff will be putting this plan together. Well, hopefully in a few staff reports from now, we'll be talking about our housing needs study, and definitely would like to tag on to the efforts of a consultant that we hope to hire for that process to help ask those right questions when we're meeting with people. But staff will be assembling the housing and homelessness plan.
Okay,
Which that is achievable. We have until the end of May. I think we can, do what we need to do to put it all together to get the necessary information for that in time.
okay, thank you.
I would, sorry, first, any last questions? Great, I'm not seeing any, so I'll ask mine. I have just one question or thought that, Scott, would you be able to present a first draft to the, at least the municipal council or at our council meetings? Just to
Certainly.
see, I think this is a conversation to be had with councils on a whole, but I think it would be also very eye-opening for the different communities to be able to see how the report's going and also give first ideas, thoughts, questions, help, and move on it and then see how it's progressing as we get to May.
Oh, yeah, you bet. That's a great idea. And again, I've chatted with Lynn and with people individually. We haven't got together as a team. And one of the things we want to do is figure out how to weave all those different, the housing needs study, the homelessness, housing and homelessness plan, the homelessness enumeration, a number of things. How do we weave all that together? And at the risk of jumping ahead, one of our goals with the housing needs study is that each member municipality will get their own report or part of the whole study will be a report about each member municipality, so they can take that and look at that and use that as a tool to help them create more housing or deliver services or be aware of services. And we're definitely thinking about how do we do that with the housing and homelessness plan? Could we parcel that out so that, Loyalist Township has a piece about specific to Loyalist Township and Addington Highlands and Prince Edward County and Town of Napanee and Stone Mills. And so that's just been something we've thought about, but haven't really talked about how do we deliver that. So we'll be meeting about that in the, before the end of the month, and can definitely report back to committee about our progress with that.
I would definitely encourage that. I think having those specific numbers and those specific entities for us to work off of with our different municipalities is incredibly important. It's also just good knowledge to know how many houses do we need? What is our homelessness looking like? As Councillor Fritsch said, it's going to be different for all of us and our needs are and what we should be focusing in on. I think that's really important to be able to specifically be like, okay, this is what we are going to target here in Prince Edward County. This is what Addington Highlands is specifically going to target. And there's Greater Napanee has their own issues. Like it will be quite the balance. And I would also encourage this, I think over this next year, I know our years are a little different. I go from September to September, but maybe that's elected years, is specifically, I'd like to see more Pellis staff, especially on some of these larger reports, such as like the homeless prevention program coming up and adding in and homeless staff. We'd like to see you in Prince Edward County we'd like to see, like, if these reports are going to our staff for numbers, we'd also like to see you at council, just for more information and more.
Sure.
I think it's important to get these conversations, and after seeing so many people reach out and want to talk, members of the press, members of the public, members of these groups, I think it would allow the conversations to keep having, so then they don't see us doing one working session and be like, this is our only chance to speak. But to have this next year, especially before the report comes out, these smaller chunks and entities of it, I think there is a big need in the public. People want to have these conversations now and they want to figure it out. And the more good news, the more statistics, the more information that can go out. Also, the more honest stories that can be out there, I think the more traction we can get. So I know that sounds like, I'm sorry to add work, but I know just specifically to us, we would like to see you.
Well, that's good because there's several more reports in this committee agenda where you're going to see me lots. No, just kidding. Yeah,
Sorry, other members of Prince Edward County.
Yes, again, jumping forward to that housing needs study piece, one of the objectives in that is that the consultant will be talking to all elected officials and whatever staff members, elected officials would like us to meet with in their offices. And so we want to we don't want to have people meet 2 or 3 times with us. So just to get those questions to drive the development of the housing and homelessness plan would be good as well. And thank you. That's great to come. I was, of course, thinking I might meet with councils once the report is done and say, here's the final report. But it totally makes sense to go through and say, here's where we're kind of headed and get people's input. So they would have input anyway on the final plan, but to get it at a more formal setting like a council meeting would be good. I also anticipate there'll be some sort of like survey for the general public to complete so we can get people's input that way as well.
Yeah. Well, that sounds great. On that note, I have no more questions. I don't know if anybody else had anything stirred up. I don't see any hands jumping into the air, so can we have a mover and seconder to note and receive? Mayor Ferguson, Councillor Nyman, all in favor? That carries. Okay, thanks, Scott. And homelessness numeration, still you. We're going to hear from you a lot. Looking forward. Number 2.
Hopefully you like this raspy voice or can at least manage to tolerate it. So homelessness enumeration, we've done this a couple of times, but every time we've done it, we've been required by the province to do it. There's a source of funding called the Reaching Home funding, and there's 20 municipalities across Canada that receive that. Pellis doesn't receive that, but the 2 smallest communities that receive it are actually Belleville and Kingston. And they went out last fall and counted the number of unhoused people in their community. It's just a good tool to get a good idea, not just the numbers, but who are they, where are they from, what's happened to them that they're unhoused, and what do they envision could happen to make it to make it better for them, be it whether they remain unhoused or whether they pursue housing. So we thought, in conjunction with our housing needs study, the housing and homelessness plan, it'd be a really good idea to get a good fix on the number of unhoused people and all those other data points I just discussed. So this is just talking about doing that.
And before I open the floor to questions, just to go with kind of the theme on this meeting, can this also be broken down per all the different areas based on the HPP report also coming?
Yes, and you'll note sometimes when people when groups count unhoused people, it's kind of like one night or one day they just go out and try to get everybody. We thought that we'd miss a lot of our rural homelessness with that approach, so we're thinking of maybe having it happen over the course of a week and including our community partners. Some concerns about how do the person that Pellis talked to Monday and then some outreach services talks to Wednesday, how do you make sure you don't count them twice? And we've got some strategies for that, but we just want to make sure that we are able to reach everybody because, while downtown Picton might be a good place to go, there's also lots of places in Prince Edward County where there's kind of that remote homelessness. And definitely, as you get north of Napanee and Lennox and Addington, homelessness takes on a whole new other view from there. So we want to make sure that we are that we have time to reach the guy living in a rundown trailer on a remote field, just outside of Denby. And if we had to do it all in one day, I don't know that we'd get there. So that's our approach. And then we can probably break it down to each member municipality as well.
That sounds great. Any questions from committee? Councillor Fritsch?
Yes, thank you, Sam. Yes, Scott, certainly when you get in the remote areas, this will be a challenge. I don't, I actually, yeah, on the surface, I don't know. I guess you would obviously know some of these people through, so to speak, because they're receiving some sort of assistance, but there may be others that aren't. Yeah, it's a challenge. I'm not, it's just a comment. When I look, how would I actually do it in our community and going, oh my gosh, like trying to figure this out in 2 days would be impossible. Some of these people just won't surface. Like you wouldn't even know, right? There is no easy way of knowing them, that they're there.
Yeah.
I mean, the community knows they're there, but others wouldn't.
So again, marrying all these different reports and timing them, ideally what we've had an opportunity to do before we do that is reach out to member municipalities. Oftentimes, people responsible for enforcing bylaws, even the roads committee or roads department, there's Mrs. Smith, and we know her husband passed away. I went by her house, man, it is looking rough. Or, just a municipal employee who happens to know somebody and can advise us where to go and who to talk to. And obviously you're correct in that we have some people who are receiving assistance, but it's kind of how do we reach those people who are struggling, who aren't receiving assistance from us, that are just kind of going it alone, and get to them and talk to them. But we'll definitely be involving municipal staff because not just through their work, but just they're members of the community and they know about Mrs. Smith and her troubles, and they drive by her house each day, and we'll get some information from those folks as well.
Yeah. I know you'll do your best.
Yeah, yeah, and I can safely say with whatever number we have, we know we haven't found everybody. One of the leading places where unhoused people are is in our existing community housing. So it was a sad case, we had to evict somebody, and she had 6 other people from the unhoused community there. So, and it was in Napanee, and so suddenly our community partners were like, whoa, we've got 7 new unhoused people, unruly unhoused people to deal with. And it was all because of that. So one of our strategies will be, how do we reach the unhoused people staying in community housing? Rough estimate would be there's probably over 50 unhoused people in community housing. And that's from everybody from, people on the street to, some kid in high school got in an argument with their stepfather, and they have a buddy who lives in social housing, and he's been staying on the couch since Tuesday, kind of thing. So it's all those people that we want to reach, and acknowledge the challenge of, or I guess acknowledge the reality we aren't going to reach them all, but it's a challenge to strategize to come up with how do we meet with as many as we can.
Thanks, Scott. Councillor Nyman?
Thank you. And I don't know that you can answer this, but I'll ask the question anyway. So I'm just looking in the report, and 2018 and 21, there was, I guess, some data collected, and it's pretty close. It's 94 of those people in 2018 and 95 in 2021. So I guess, it's good that we're going out and collecting the data and trying to find out all these. But I guess with that data, what are we doing about it? Like, are we, are we making progress? Because if I look at those numbers, it doesn't look like, whether they don't want the help or we couldn't find them or whatever. But how do we gauge how successful we are?
Sure, that's a great question. So one of the things, unfortunately, Palace cannot control is how many people become unhoused and how many people come to us for help when they're unhoused. But what we can control is what we do to help them. And we have this transitional housing program that I know you've heard lots about, and it's our most successful tool in solving homelessness. We've had a little over 100 people go through the program, and we've solved homelessness for 44 of those people, which is an amazing outcome. And I can proudly talk about this program. It was already in existence when I came to Palace. We've made some tweaks and adjustments to improve it, and I think we'll always be improving it. But a 44% success rate with solving homelessness is unheard of. But it takes time. It takes people about 2 years to go from being unhoused for 4 years to being able to live independently. So I think I look at that as a success. We have this homelessness working group in Napanee. They meet every other week and they talk about homelessness. They talk about homeless solutions, and they talk about people specifically with consents and everybody and everything. And they strategize about what are we going to do about GORD. And then, there's people from several different agencies talking about how to best support that person. So when I look at successes, I kind of look at our ability to reach people. We have people living in transitional housing now that when we first met them, we thought they would never be prepared, I guess, or settled or have the skills and ability to be able to last in a traditional housing environment. And they are, and some are being successful, and some are getting permanently housed. And that's one of the gauges I use. I think also a gauge we use is just how many people in the unhoused community are willing to work with us. And I say that because you would think we've got resources, we've got kind people ready to help, but and again, you'll see this in another report, but about 40% of people, when they first become unhoused, have an acquired brain injury. After about 4 years of being unhoused, that number reaches about 70 or 80%. So trying to get, I'm trying to put this in a sort of layman's terms, trying to get reasonable responses from people who have acquired brain injuries is a really difficult task. Some people, they don't, I'll meet you this Tuesday at 11 and we're going to do a thing. Well, they can't remember when Tuesday is. Their life doesn't revolve around the calendar and a clock. So trying to get people into that initial service sometimes is really difficult. But as we struggle through this, we improve our methods to do that. So I would say we've been fairly successful in getting people to reach out. The one resource we don't have enough of is housing. And if we had enough housing, our success would be even greater than it is right now.
Councillor Nyman?
Sorry, I just want a quick follow-up. Just on the housing, the transitional housing. I think I understand how that whole concept works. So is there plans to have more of those transitional housings? I'm not sure how many we got right now, but and I know in Prince Edward County, I think it's up to we can have 9 people in the house, is it?
Yes, sorry, Madam Chair, through you to Councillor Nyman. Yes, there's Leeward House, and then we also have one other home in Picton. There's some uncertainties about the funding with that'll be coming probably to the November meeting to talk about, that we're trying to get confirmation from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing about ongoing funding. And while there's a desire to expand our transitional housing program, we've got to make sure that the funding is secure moving forward before we expand that program.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And any other questions? So with with this note and receive, there is a staff recommendation. I'm just going to read out that section, that the Pellis Committee authorize staff to plan and conduct a period prevalence count PPC in October or November of 2025. Can I have a mover and seconder for the motion as a whole? Councillor Nyman, Councillor Fritz. All those in favor? That carries. Great, thank you. Okay, next up we have number 6, housing and homelessness plan updates. Still you, Scott.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. So this every year, so we wrote our original housing and homeless plan in 2014. There was a major update 5 years later in 2019, but every year we're required to sort of give a progress report and how we're doing. And I don't expect you to go back and read all those reports, but I kind of read through them, and you can kind of see the acceleration of the issue of homelessness get captured in those reports, where it starts from a couple paragraphs to this piece. I didn't count the pages, but there's several pages committed to homelessness in our response and what we can do, and the problems that homelessness and the opioid crisis and all that creates. And I think that's just indicative of what will be some of the content of our new 10-year plan, and just what will be there. But there's also some constants, like those 615 community housing units that and our rent supplements. I'm going to forget transitional housing. Counted it up the other day as I prepared for that October 1st meeting, and we house over 1,000 people every day, have affordable housing because of our efforts and services. And I'd never added that up, and it's like, wow, how cool that 1,000 people benefit from what we do and what the committee does and all the efforts of staff. And that's just in our housing. There's many more that benefit from subsidized childcare and Ontario Works, but just from my housing realm, that we're housing over 1,000 people every day is fantastic. So, so to maintain that housing will continue to be a key priority. And we provide, we do up maintenance and capital plans to help sustain those units. So I think you'll see some things just repeated from that original plan, but then you'll see the development as we go on. So that's all I'm going to say about this progress report. If people have any questions about the content, please let me know.
Well, that's a very encouraging number, and that's incredibly exciting. So thank you for sharing that, Scott. Any questions or comments from committee? Seeing none, mover and seconder to note and receive. Councillor Davison, Warden, all in favor? That carries. Okay, that was quick one, sorry. Anyways, on that note, housing needs study. Scott, still you?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Burton, Madam Chair. Through you to the rest of the committee. The housing needs study, we've been trying to get this done for a while. And no, it's not a typo if you read that in June 8th, 2023, committee approved moving forward. So we actually put out our RFP, and we were contacted by a group, the Housing, Heart Group. I can't believe I can't remember their acronym, but Housing Assessment Resource Tools, there we go, who were provided funding from CMHC to do large components of our housing needs study for free. So they completed that, and then we put out an RFP again, and we were able to get a consultant to respond, and they've offered to conduct this housing needs study for us. I've already alluded to with when this housing needs study is being completed, we've also got, our new housing and homeless plan and a few other things, our resource tools and some other things that we'd want to include in this. But a housing needs study, if you apply for CMHC funding to build new housing, for example, they ask you for a housing needs study. I can't speak as well about roads and community planning and community development, but I know when those plans are submitted, they're looking for a housing needs study. So this will give Pellis the tools in order to apply for some of those funding streams. And as I mentioned earlier, each of our 5 member municipalities will get like a sub report that's just specific to their area. And the consultant will be talking to staff and elected officials at all of our member municipalities.
That's great. Any questions from committee? Councillor Davison.
Just wondering what the timeline is, Scott, for this, whether how quick we would receive that information.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Councilor Davidson, and through the chair to the rest of the committee. I think we're looking at about February to have this completed. If this is approved, I'll be in contact with them either before the end of the week or early next week, and then they've submitted a plan, and it would have been easier, but I think they've recommended, early December we stop consultations until after the holiday season. So I would expect something in February. I'll be coming at our November meeting of this committee. I'll provide some sort of update report about how we're progressing through with this.
Great. Tony?
Thanks, Sam. Scott, I had one question in there. When you're looking at properties that are available, when they do that during that study, do they look at private properties, or is it just publicly owned properties?
Well, that's a good, sorry, Councilor Rich, through you and to the rest of the committee. That's a really good question because, as you know, we recently asked municipalities to identify properties, and one of our member municipalities we were identifying, they said, okay, here's the stuff we own. Now, here's some stuff that's available that we think you could get, that's in the private market, that we think you could get a pretty good deal on. And we really like its location. We think you might like to build affordable housing there. So definitely with this, that'll be a question that's asked, like, what are other ideas? And some of it were things like, this belonged to a family, it's part of the estate, none of the kids live locally, they've got lots of money, and they might really be willing to offer a discount if the guarantee of affordable housing was there. I think it was even, put their last name on the building, you might even get a deeper discount. So it was really good to get that local knowledge to point us towards private land where we might be able to get a discount or a deal. It was an interesting concept for sure. But we'll be meeting with staff of all the member municipalities to get those ideas.
Thanks.
That's great. Any other questions? I'm seeing none. There's also a recommendation from staff on this one as well, that committee approved funding in the amount of $57,577 to award to the housing needs study contract to Re/Fact and SHS Consulting in accordance with the results of the request for the proposals process. Can I have a mover and seconder for everything on a whole? I see Warden, I see Councillor Davison, all in favor? That carries. Okay. Moving on. We have a national housing strategy. Scott, if you would like to.
I think we only have to listen to me for 2 more reports. Every year we receive funding through different programs like the Homelessness Prevention Program, the Canada Ontario Community Housing Initiative, the Ontario priorities housing initiatives. And they usually have goals. The guidelines haven't changed too much. This year, when they gave us that funding, they gave us a target and want us to add 8 additional units of affordable subsidized housing to our portfolio. And part of this, and why it's called the National Housing Strategy, there's a National Housing Strategy that, boy, if I wasn't under the pressure right now, I could tell you how many homes they want to build. But I know in Ontario that relates to 1.5 million homes by, I think it's 2030 that they want to create. So this is happily forcing us to create more units. So when we look at what units we wanted to add, there's a group in our we have a waiting list for social housing. If you apply today, you go to the bottom of the list, you wait till your name gets to the top. There is an exceptional category for victims of domestic violence, and they go right to the top. So sometimes we're about 80% of our vacancies are filled by people who are victims of domestic violence. And that's great. I was at the Quinte Coordinating Committee Against Violence yesterday and was really happy to report that stat, and people were pretty pleased with it. The downside to that is that only 20% of our vacancies are filled by people who don't have intimate partner violence as part of their lives. So we thought about targeting the people that are kind of at the top of that list and are waiting. And we've had some families who have been waiting since 2013 for subsidized housing on our list. So we thought about targeting those folks, and we haven't talked to anybody because I need to get committee's approval, but sort of how we envision this is, where are you living now? Can we provide a rent supplement where you're living, and would that make it better? Or where are you living now? Oh, it's horrible. Okay, could you find a spot that we can subsidize, or we'll help you find a spot that we can subsidize to stabilize your housing? Anyway, that's where we thought we'd direct that funding. And
Great.
I need to add too that the funding we'll be using is all provincial funding and won't have an impact on the property tax base.
Great. Can I have any questions? I was going to go straight to a mover and seconder. I was like, wait, nope, not yet. Questions? Oh, look at that. We're going straight to a mover and seconder. That's great, Scott. There is a 2 recommendations attached to the note and receive that the local rent assisted unit target plan be approved by Pellis Committee, and further that staff be authorized to modify this plan as needed within the guidelines in response to the local needs and to ensure local targets are reached. Mover and seconder. Mayor Ferguson and Councillor Fritsch. All those in favor? That carries. And now moving on to Canada, Ontario Community Housing Initiatives and Ontario Priorities Housing Initiatives Investment Plan. Scott.
Yes, all right. I think this is my last one. So we receive funding annually through these 2 programs. I'm going to call them COCHI and OFI, just their acronyms. Some slight changes this year. We received less money through OFI, Ontario Priority Housing Initiative, but we received more through the Canada Ontario Community Housing Initiative. We used funding from both of these programs to fund our rent supplement program, which is great. That's 68 units just in the private market that we help subsidize. So that's great. But the bulk of the Canada Ontario Community Housing Initiative goes towards capital improvements in our existing community housing. So that's the housing that we own and operate, but also our 5 oh, bless you. Also our 5 nonprofits that we fund, Odessa, IRCA, Napanee Housing Corp, Picton Seniors, and Quinty's Isle. We provide them with funding. We've traditionally done that on kind of take the total amount, divide it by the 615 units of community housing, and then work out a per unit piece and have our housing providers submit capital jobs they'd like to complete, and we go from there. This really helps us pay for those costs without diving into the property tax base. So they're great programs.
That's great. Any questions from committee? Seeing none. Scott, just offhand, do you have the breakdown between LNA and Prince Edward County of units per units?
No, but this one, so more, we have more of our, I don't have these numbers in front of me, but we have more rent supplements in Lennox and Addington than Prince Edward County. One of the things we're doing, so a few years ago, if you, some members might recall, our funding for the rent supplement program was at risk. So at that point, we took the initiative to transfer people who are receiving rent supplements from us into a different rent supplement program called the Canada Ontario Housing Benefit. And we looked at people who would be most vulnerable if the funding ran out. And so we looked at a lot of people who have disabilities who live with us. And it just so happened that Prince Edward County had quite a bit more people with disabilities that we transferred over to Cobb. So that balance doesn't reflect, sort of that the funding mechanism with 36%, the 64%. There's way more rent supplements in Lennox and Addington, but that's because we transitioned. And then with helping with paying for the units, the capital plans, that's just based on our capital plan, and our capital plan is never developed thinking of the funding split. And I'm trying to recall the committee report, maybe the last meeting or the meeting before that, where I think it was only 24% of this funding went to Prince Edward County. But the year before, just coincidentally due to capital pressures, it was about 50-50. I think actually Prince Edward County units got a little more. So this is one fund that we really don't look at that split because it's driven by the capital plans and driven by where we have rent supplements. I will add another small component of the OFI funding goes to our Ontario Renovates program. And last year there was a pretty even split. I think we had about $117,000 and $50,000 went to residents in Prince Edward County and the rest went to Lennox and Addington. And the interest in that program, we actually have like a waiting list for that program, so it's easy to split between, although it's priority driven. There's lots of need in both service areas.
Great.
Sorry, does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. That
Okay.
does. Thank you. So mover and a seconder then for this to be, we also have motions. Okay. So we have additional recommendations that the investment plans for the Kochi and OP, and B initiative be approved by the Pellis Committee, and that staff be authorized to reallocate program funds between the programs components in response to local needs and to ensure full utilization of allocations. Mover and seconder for the motion on a whole. Mayor Ferguson, I'm just going to take your hand there that you were scratching with, and Warden. All in favor? That carries. Don't raise your hand. This is like an auctioneer. Any nose touches and or scratches will be counted as you volunteering to be called on. Scott, I'm sorry, you are not allowed to leave yet. You have another report that you need to present on Homelessness Prevention Program Investment Plan.
Yes, sir. I did miscount there. Thank you, Madam Chair. So every year we receive funding from the Homelessness Prevention Program, and this year is no different, and our funding is the same. It's about $2.5 million, and we do lots of great work with that. Some of that is so we get a number of people who are facing eviction from for non-payment of rent or utility disconnects. We sometimes pay for vehicle repairs, but usually people have already paid for the vehicle repairs, so we're paying to help out pay the rent with that funding. We fund a number of initiatives in the community with that, like Leeward House, like our warming center at Morning Star Mission, and several staff that work directly with unhoused people, some food programs, things like that. So we have that funding again this year. And so I'm just letting you know about that funding. And usually we've been doing this for a while now about working with community partners. I think we know which community partners we want to work with and would like to continue with, like Leeward House. It's fantastic. It helps a lot of people. And Leeward House really developed a great a great working relationship with Pellis, so our caseworkers are helping their folks, and it's good. So this is just talking about that usual annual money we receive and what we'd like to do with it.
Okay, that's great.
Well, sorry, I should add why this is coming to you now. So we received information in the summertime. It was odd, like, mid-July. Hey, here's your, sorry, it wasn't worded, hey, but it was sort of like letting us know that we're receiving Kochi, OFI, and HPP, and we'd like your investment plan submitted. I think Kochi and OFI was the end of July, and HPP was mid-August. And it was obvious there was no time to meet with the committee. So this is just letting you know this is what we submitted, and we can definitely change that if committee wants us to, but this is just letting you know about that too. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. Any questions from committee? Seeing none, so this one also has motions attached to it that the homelessness prevention program investment plan be approved by the Pellis Committee, and further that Pellis Committee approve funding the Morningstar mission to provide a warming center from November 1st, 2025 to April 30th, 2026, and further that Pellis staff be authorized to reallocate program funds between the program components in response to local needs and to ensure full utilization of allocations. Councillor Davison. Councillor Fritsch, thank you. And all in favor for the motion as a whole? That carries. Okay, we are going to move on to,
Thank you very much for listening to me, and thank you very much for your support, everyone. Have a great day.
Scott, it was a pleasure. You knocked down, I think, half to 2/3 of this agenda. It's been lovely listening to you, but I'm sorry, the price is not right. You must leave. And Pam's turn to present the next few. Pam, lovely to see you.
Good morning. Thank you. Good morning to all the committee. So the report, the first one I'm going to speak to is the Ontario Works report. And this is just an information to let committee know that as part of our centralized intake implementation with the province that began on December 16th of 2024, there is a new overpayment process. So any overpayments after that date now become Crown debt. And so we will be referring those overpayments to the financial services unit. And then anything prior to that date still remains collectible by Pellis, and that the province is looking at a strategy to help municipalities collect on that over payment debt prior to that. And then also in the report is just a to show our achievements towards our current outcome targets that we're expected to achieve, and that that the ministry is looking at a performance support framework, which hasn't been released yet. So more details once that's known. And the targets will be part of our new performance metric that you're going to hear about a little bit later from Liam, our new online system for you to look at all the different data points that we have. So happy to answer any questions that committee may have.
Great. Any questions from committee? I'm seeing none. You're let off easy, Pam, on number 1. Can I have a mover and seconder to note and receive? Warden? Councillor Nyman, all in favor? That carries. Okay. Pam, let's try number 2, childcare funding update.
So thank you, Madam Chair. So this is just to highlight that we received notice of 2 new funding for 2025, which is the one was an early on increase to the early on budget for 2025. It's a one-time stabilization funding, which was welcomed news because there's been very little increases in that program since its inception. So that was welcome news. And we are going to be engaging with the province on further conversations around future funding. So we look forward to that. The second was the innovation funding that came out as part of the omnibus reporting package that we received. And that funding is much like the workforce funding we had received a few years ago. It is one-time funding for 25-26, but it's to help again with recruitment and retention efforts towards increasing our workforce to help with our expansion efforts. So should note though that it is a notional allocation, so it's not a confirmed allocation at this point. We do have to submit a plan by next Friday on how we intend to utilize those funds, and then that will be the ministry will then provide us approval on those funds. So we have a meeting with all of our childcare and early on sector partners to gather some feedback on how they would like to see us best use that funding, and what's it's a small amount of funds. So what activities would give us the most impact in helping with that recruitment and retention efforts. So happy to answer any questions that you may have on that.
I think any extra funding, no matter how big or how small, is always accepted. Councillor Fritsch, I saw your hand up.
Thanks, Sam. Yeah, Pam, I have one question. It has to do with additional people getting their ECE diploma and the living classroom. So is that where they would actually be working, and that would be part of their actual training? Or can you explain that briefly?
Yeah, great question through Madam Chair. So as you know, at our long-term care facility in Lennox and Addington County, they have a successful living classroom model for their PSW program. So we're looking at, is there a way for us to replicate that in some way to support those getting their ECE? So we're looking at working with community partners to have like a classroom component to it, but also then have them have placements within the childcare sector so that they can get a feel for if this is the field they would like to go in. And then if it is, using the funds to provide some grants and bursaries to help them to achieve that educational goal. And then hopefully them staying in our community to work.
Thanks, Pam.
Perfect. Anyone else from committee? Any questions? Seeing none, this is just a motion to note and receive. Can I have a mover and seconder? Mayor Ferguson, saw your hand get up there. Councillor Fritsch.
Yeah.
All those in favor? That carries. Nobody's going to want me to be chair when I'm done this anymore. I'm thinking
You're
I'm
doing a good job.
okay.
You
just
are.
Gonna say, I feel like I just talk too much and also force people to move and second things. So anyways, Pam, number 3, directed growth update.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this report is just an update to follow up from our previous committee meeting where the committee had directed that staff try to find a proponent to expand within Loyalist and or Stone Mills or Addington Highlands communities. So we did release an expression of interest. We had 2 proponents express interest. We've since asked those 2 proponents to submit a full business case, which is due September 30th. So happy to report that we do have some interested folks for that area, and we will provide further updates at the next meeting regarding the outcome of that business case submission. I guess the other note I have on here is just, so although we're limited with how many spaces we can expand because the province provides us with those targets, we are looking at what we currently already have licensed and what's not currently being operating. And is there a way to move spaces around to create more operational spaces? In some cases, it's not, because there actually is a need in that community and it's a staffing shortage. That's the reason it's not operating. But we are looking at all those options with our providers to see if we can't expand the number of spaces that are actually available and operating within our community. So again, happy to answer any questions that the committee may have.
Okay, do we have any questions from committee? I am seeing none. I do just like to say congratulations, Pam. That is really encouraging to get those spaces sorted out, especially in some more rural communities. They're definitely always needed, and the closer they can be to home, usually the better. So that's awesome to hear. And I have a mover and seconder for note received. Councillor Davison, Warden, and all in favor. That carries. Okay. And now we will be school age affordable pilot. This was a fun new one, Pam.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So this, again, just wanted to share that as committee members are aware, through the Canada-wide Early Learning and Childcare System, well, otherwise known as CWELC, families have received reduced fees. So they're now paying a maximum of $22 or less at sites for children 0 to 5 or 0 to 6, sorry, that are at CWELC eligible sites. So our families who have children over 6 are still paying market rent. Through our new funding, because there's a new funding formula that was implemented in 2025 for the CWELC system, we also have local priorities or flexibility funding to support our 6 to 12 system. And so we have decided at PALAS to implement this affordability pilot from September to December to try to align fees similar to CWELC so that families are paying a similar fee of that $22 max for those children aged 6 to 12. And we'll evaluate the effectiveness of it and see what our funding is for 2026 to see if we could continue the pilot beyond that. But just wanted to share that exciting news. I think is great for families that we're able to use our funding to support all of our families from the whole sector, 0 to 12. Again, happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions from committee? Councillor Fritsch?
Yes, thanks, Sam. Yeah, Pam, certainly sounds very promising in that sense. But with the pilot, like if that was successful, what type of funding would you actually require, do you think, say next year, to make this in a broad scale available?
Thank you for the question. That's part of the reason of doing the pilot was just to really get, like, because we did crunch numbers to see, and we knew we could afford it within our current, but really to get a sense of what the impact would be. In most cases, it's actually not, unfortunately, not a lot of money that's needed, because a lot of families 6 to 12 are using just before or after, which is much lower of a cost than a full day program for the younger children. So the dollars aren't as high as it would be in the CWELC system, but certainly that's part of the pilot is to make sure we're analyzing that we would have how much funding it will actually take.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Good question. Any others from committee? I'm saying none. This is just to note and receive. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Nyman, Councillor Fritsch, all those in favor? Carries. And Pam, thank you for your time to hold up the other 1/3 of the meeting. Sorry, Scott took up so much of it. No, just kidding. Sorry, Scott. I know you're there, but Liam, it is now your turn. PALAS Childcare Centralized Waitlist Update.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. So this report is just to highlight to committee members that we have finalized our testing phase of the centralized waitlist, and we're looking into implementing it publicly in October. So the waitlist aims to streamline processes for both our operators as well as the families when applying for care within the PALAS region, while also providing us some key data to aid with our delivery of services for our community. So I'm happy to answer any questions committee may have related to the waitlist.
Any questions from committee? Seeing none, Liam, you're getting off easy. Can I have a mover and a seconder to note and receive? Warden, Brad, Councillor Nyman, all in favor? That carries, but Liam, don't go anywhere because you're next. Again, updated PALAS metrics, performance metrics.
Yeah, and thank you. And so this report is also just to highlight the draft performance metrics. So during our previous PALAS committee, I showed an updated metrics encompassing kind of more data and descriptions with some pseudo data in there. But these updated ones now include actual data across our different departments. So the version attached is inclusive of actual data where we were able to break it out where possible. I do want to just highlight that within the report, there was a blurb relating to the metrics crashing some browsers. I do believe we have currently resolved this, but we will continue to monitor the site to ensure that this or other issues don't arise. With that being said, this version is still able to be developed, and I'm happy to receive any comments or feedback relating to these new metrics or anything members of the committee would wish to see within the metrics where possible.
Hey, can I have any questions from committee? Any thoughts on the metrics? It did not crash my computer. just an update, and it's a very sensitive computer. So just to let you know. Any takers? Going once, going twice. So this one does have a recommendation on it. I'll read out loud that Palace Committee provide feedback on the data provided and any additional metrics that they wish to be included in the new Palace performance metrics. Okay, but we got none. So mover and seconder for the motion as a whole. Tony, Warden, all in favor? That carries. And last but not least, Liam, Palace performance metrics.
Thank you. And so these are just our previous metrics that we've reported on previously. I have nothing further to add to this report of what's in the metrics, but I do want to just share that as we kind of have updated the metrics from the previous kind of report that was just out there, we will be transitioning over into the new updated metrics within this Matters for Information. And I'm happy to answer any questions committee may have.
I'm seeing none. I do have a quick question. You did note in your report that the paid employment increased from 870 to 944. Have you heard anything in the why that increase might have happened? Like, was there any new industry coming or anything that might have caused that?
Not to my knowledge. Sometimes there are just genuine fluctuations depending on current incomes at any point in time when they kind of gather the reports. But in terms of a general reasoning, I'm really not too sure as to why there was that fluctuation.
Yeah, just there's a decent amount fluctuating, so it's a nice number to see. But can I get a mover and seconder to note and receive? Oh, Warden, Councillor Davison, all in favor? That carries. Well, everybody, this is adjournment. Thank you so much for powering through this meeting. I know it was a long one, but it was a good one. So thank you all for your time. And I believe we are adjourned.
Oh, we do need a motion to adjourn too, Sam.
We need a motion to adjourn. Sorry. Thank you, Beth. Councillor Nyman, hand right up. What, nobody else wants to second this? Okay, Councillor Tony. Thanks for jumping on that. All in favor? That carries unanimously. Thank you, Palace staff, for all the help.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you,
Have a good
everyone.
day.
Yeah, take care.